This is the story of nurse the name Bella. What happened to her when she tried to help wounded black boy? The night was quiet, the kind of silence that stretches across empty highways and makes every sound echo louder than it should. The sky above was a thick canvas of black, interrupted only by the pale glow of the moon and the distant twinkle of stars. The hum of an old sedan cut through the emptiness, headlights carving their way across the endless asphalt. Behind the wheel sat Bella, a 23-year-old nurse whose life was already heavier than her years. She had just finished another exhausting shift at the hospital. Her scrubs were tucked into a bag on the passenger seat, replaced now by a simple white blouse and faded jeans. The faint smell of antiseptic still clung to her skin, as if the hospital had imprinted itself on her body. Her eyes were heavy, but her mind kept replaying the events of the day. Patients she couldn't save, families she couldn't comfort enough, and the endless ringing of machines that filled her head even after leaving the building. Nursing wasn't just a job for her. It was a burden, a calling, a test she lived every day. She reached for the radio, hoping music might distract her from her thoughts, but static was all she found. Out here, the signal was as lost as she was in her own fatigue. She sighed, drumming her fingers on the steering wheel. That was when she saw it. At first, it looked like just another shape in the distance, maybe road debris, maybe an animal. But as her headlights caught it, the sight froze her blood. A body, a boy, lying sprawled on the shoulder of the road. Bella slammed her foot on the brake. Her car screeched, tires biting the pavement, until she came to a sharp halt a few yards away. Her heart hammered in her chest, adrenaline replacing her exhaustion in an instant. She blinked, squinting through the windshield, praying it wasn't what it looked like. But it was. A boy, maybe 16 or 17, dark skin glowing faintly under the moonlight. His shirt was stained with something dark blood. His arm twitched weakly, then fell still again. Bella's breath caught. She had seen countless emergencies inside the safety of her hospital, surrounded by bright lights and sterile tools. But here, alone on a desolate highway with nothing but shadows and silence, it felt different. It felt dangerous. Still, instinct overrode fear. She was a nurse. Helping wasn't a choice, it was who she was. She grabbed her small emergency kit from the passenger seat, pushed her door open, and stepped out. The night air was cool, carrying with it the faint smell of pine and asphalt. Her shoes crunched against gravel as she hurried toward the boy. "Hey, can you hear me?" she called out, her voice trembling but strong enough to carry. The boy didn't respond. His chest rose shallowly, barely visible. Bella crouched beside him, her training taking over. She checked his pulse. There was one, faint but steady. Relief washed over her, but her nerves stayed sharp. She tugged her phone from her pocket, her thumb hovering over the screen. Should she call 911? The nearest hospital was 30 miles back, and in these rural stretches, help didn't come fast. If he was bleeding internally, he could die before anyone arrived. She opened her kit, pulling out gloves, gauze, and antiseptic wipes. Her hands moved automatically, like she'd done this 1,000 times before, because she had. But something about this was wrong. The wound. As she lifted his shirt slightly, expecting torn flesh, she froze. The blood was smeared, but not fresh. It didn't have that sharp, metallic scent. It looked painted, fake. Her eyes widened. The boy's hand twitched again, but this time it didn't fall limp. His fingers curled slightly, as if holding back strength. His breathing, shallow just moments ago, deepened almost imperceptibly. Bella's heart raced. "What is this?" she whispered to herself, backing up just slightly. Her mind screamed at her. Something isn't right. The boy's eyelids fluttered. Slowly, he opened them. His eyes locked onto hers, dark, alert, far too alive for someone supposedly on the verge of death. Bella's throat tightened. She staggered a step back, clutching her kit. And then, a sound shattered the night. The slam of a door. Not her car. A van. Somewhere behind the trees that lined the road. Bella's head snapped up. The sound was followed by footsteps. Heavy, fast, deliberate. Multiple pairs. Gravel crunching, boots pounding. Her chest constricted. She turned back to the boy, but his expression had changed. Gone was the weak, helpless face she thought she'd seen. In its place was something else, something sharp. A smirk, almost. Bella's stomach dropped. She realized too late. This wasn't an accident. It was a trap. Her body froze as the shadows grew larger, figures emerging from the darkness. Men, at least 3, maybe 4. Their outlines towered under the moonlight, faces obscured but movements precise. One carried rope. Another, something that glinted like metal. Bella's breath quickened. She stumbled backward, her kit falling to the ground, supplies scattering. Her mind screamed at her to run, but her legs felt cemented. And then a voice came from the darkness, cold and low. "You shouldn't have stopped, nurse." The voice echoed like thunder across the empty highway, crawling under Bella's skin. She spun around, her breath sharp and shallow, her eyes darting between the dark figures stepping out from behind the van. The world felt smaller, the air heavier, the night no longer silent but alive with menace. Her heart thudded so hard it hurt. Her mind screamed at her to sprint back to her car, to get in and drive until the gas tank bled dry. But the men had already spread out, circling her like wolves who had been waiting too long for the hunt to begin. The boy on the ground sat up suddenly. No groans of pain, no cries for help, just smooth, casual movements. He wiped at the fake blood on his shirt with the back of his hand, smearing it into the fabric. His face now looked older than Bella had thought, maybe 18, maybe even 20. And the expression in his eyes wasn't desperation anymore. It was triumph. Bella staggered back another step, her shoes scraping against gravel. What is this? What do you want?" she stammered, her voice trembling. None of them answered right away. The man closest to her, tall with broad shoulders, tilted his head as though studying prey. "You came," he finally said, his voice almost amused. "You always come, don't you? The kind ones. The helpers. The ones who can't just drive by." The boy on the ground laughed, low, mocking, a sound far too cruel for his young face. "She really thought I was bleeding out," he said. "I told you it would work." Bella's throat tightened. Her kit lay in the dirt by her feet, tools scattered, sterile gloves fluttering in the wind. She wanted to reach for something, anything, to defend herself. But the man stepped forward, his shadow falling across her, and she knew any sudden move could end badly. I'm a nurse," she whispered, trying to find strength in her voice, though every syllable quivered. "I was only trying to help. That's exactly why we chose you." The tall man said, "You stop for strangers. You trust too easily." Bella's mind raced. She'd read about tricks like this in safety articles, stories of people faking injuries on the roadside to lure in victims. She had even warned others about them. And yet here she was, caught in the very trap she thought she'd never fall for. "Please," she begged, her voice breaking. "Whatever you want, take it. I don't have money. My phone is old, my car's barely worth anything." The second man, leaner, with a jagged scar running from his temple to his jaw, snorted. "We don't want your money." His eyes glistened with something darker, something that made Bella's stomach twist. "We want you." Her breath hitched. The boy stood now, brushing fake blood from his arms, his face illuminated by the headlights of Bella's still-running car. He looked younger again in that glow, but there was no innocence in him, only cold intent. He pulled a cloth from his pocket, tossing it aside as though discarding the last of his disguise. Bella's mind snapped into overdrive. She needed to get out. Now. Her eyes flicked toward her car. The driver's door hung open, her keys still in the ignition, engine humming like a faint promise of escape. It wasn't far, 10 steps, maybe less. But between her and that lifeline stood 2 of the men, their stances wide, their eyes locked on her like hounds ready to strike. She weighed her chances. She could run, maybe scream, maybe reach the car before they caught her. But then what? If they reached her while she fumbled for the gear shift, if they dragged her out before she could hit the gas. Her chest tightened with panic. The tall man's voice broke her spiraling thoughts. "Don't bother thinking about it. You're not going anywhere." He stepped closer, and she stepped back instinctively, her heels brushing the edge of the road. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "Why me?" she demanded, anger flickering through her fear. "Why any of this?" For a moment, silence. The night swallowed her words. Then the scarred man chuckled. "Because people like you never think it could happen to them. Because you stop when others keep driving. Because you care." His tone turned mocking. "And because caring makes you blind." Bella's eyes burned with tears, but her spirit refused to collapse. She straightened, clutching her arms close to her chest. "If you think I'm just going to let you." Before she could finish, the boy lunged forward. Not at her, but at her kit. He kicked it into the darkness, scattering her tools beyond reach. Then he looked at her, eyes glinting with something cruel. "You're not in control anymore." The tall man lifted something from his pocket. A rope, coiled and ready. Bella's stomach churned at the sight. She took another step back, her shoes now on the uneven slope of gravel. Fear clawed at her, but a single thought kept her from collapsing: survive. Her mind shifted, focusing on every detail: how many men there were, how they moved, how close her car still was. She wasn't just a victim. She was a nurse, a fighter, someone who had stood in the face of death every single day and refused to let it win. Her chance would come. She just had to wait. But for now, the shadows closed in. The tall man gave the order, his voice cold and final. "Grab her." Bella screamed, turning to run, but hands were already reaching out, rough and merciless. Her heart raced, her legs pumping against the night, but she felt their fingers brush her arm, then her shoulder, then her waist. The world spun in chaos: shouts, gravel scattering, the thud of boots, the slam of the van's door behind her. And as Bella struggled in their grip, the boy who had played victim stepped close, his whisper curling into her ear. "You should have kept driving." The world spun into chaos as rough hands clamped down on Bella's arms, dragging her backward. Her scream ripped through the night, sharp and desperate, but the empty highway swallowed it whole. There were no headlights in the distance, no witnesses, no saviors. Just shadows and the tightening grip of strangers. Her body twisted and fought with every ounce of strength she had, her nails clawing at hands, her shoes kicking against the gravel. She felt one of her kicks land solid against a shin, heard a grunt of pain, but another pair of hands yanked her harder, nearly pulling her off her feet. The van door slammed open. Its interior was blacker than the night around it, a hollow mouth waiting to consume her. Bella's pulse pounded in her ears, deafening, and she could hardly breathe as she was shoved toward it. "Let me go," she screamed, her voice raw. She tried to bite the hand that gripped her arm, but the man only tightened his hold, twisting until pain shot up her shoulder. The boy, the one who had pretended to be injured, stood a few feet away watching with cold satisfaction. His smirk had grown, though something flickered in his eyes, something fleeting, like uncertainty, but it was gone in an instant. The tall man pushed Bella hard, and she stumbled forward, crashing against the side of the van. Her palms burned as she tried to catch herself. A second later, strong arms shoved her inside. She landed on the floor with a thud, the smell of gasoline and damp metal overwhelming her senses. The scarred man climbed in after her, slamming the door shut. Darkness swallowed her whole. For a moment, silence, just her ragged breathing and the pounding of her heart. Then the engine roared to life, the vibrations rattling through the steel floor beneath her. The van lurched forward, pulling her away from the safety of the road, deeper into the unknown. Bella pushed herself up, her hands trembling, eyes adjusting to the faint light seeping through a crack in the window. The scarred man sat across from her, his gaze fixed like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. The rope lay coiled in his lap, a silent threat. "You won't get away with this," Bella forced out, her voice shaking but sharp. "Someone will notice I'm missing. They'll come looking for me." The man chuckled darkly, leaning forward so she could see the jagged line of his scar more clearly. "Maybe, but not soon enough." Her stomach knotted. The van rattled along uneven ground now, leaving the smoothness of the highway behind. Gravel clattered against the undercarriage, every bump jolting Bella's body. She tried to steady her breathing, to think through the panic, to remember every lesson she had ever heard about surviving kidnappings. Stay calm, stay observant, look for weaknesses. Her eyes darted around. The van was old, the interior stripped bare except for 2 benches bolted to the sides. No windows in the back, only the front windshield and 2 small side panes she couldn't reach. The driver was the tall man. His broad shoulders were visible from behind the wheel. Another man sat in the passenger seat, his head turned occasionally to glance at her. 3 men. And the boy. Bella swallowed hard, trying to focus. She needed to remember every detail, faces, voices, scars, the smell of the van. Anything she could tell the police later, if she made it out alive. The scarred man leaned back, twirling the rope loosely in his hands. You should save your energy. Fighting won't help. Bella clenched her fists. I'm not going to make it easy for you. His grin widened, as if her defiance amused him. That's fine. We like a little fight. Her chest constricted, but she refused to let him see her break. She shifted slightly, testing the distance between her and the back doors. They were locked, of course, but maybe, just maybe, there'd be a chance. The boy finally climbed into the back, sitting near the scarred man. He didn't look at Bella right away. Instead, he stared down at his hands, picking at the dried fake blood on his shirt. When his eyes finally met hers, there was something different in them. Not cruelty, not triumph. Something else. Regret? Bella held his gaze, trying to read him. He quickly looked away. The van drove deeper into isolation, the hum of the highway long gone. Bella's sense of direction blurred, but she caught glimpses of trees rushing past through the crack in the window. Forest. Rural, wild, endless. No houses. No lights. Her mind screamed, no one will find me here. The scarred man noticed her scanning the window. He smirked. Don't bother memorizing. You'll never make it back. Bella's jaw clenched, but she didn't respond. Instead, she forced herself to breathe slowly, to fight back the tears threatening to spill. If she broke down now, she'd lose. Minutes stretched like hours. The van finally slowed, tires crunching over dirt and leaves. It turned sharply, then came to a stop. The tall man killed the engine. Silence fell again, heavier than before. The back doors creaked open, moonlight spilling into the dark space. Cold air rushed inside, carrying with it the smell of damp earth. Out, the tall man ordered. Bella's muscles locked, refusing to move. The scarred man grabbed her arm, yanking her to her feet. She stumbled but caught herself before falling. The boy stepped aside as they dragged her out, his eyes flicking toward her again, that same flicker of guilt sparking in his gaze. Outside, the forest loomed. Towering trees stretched into the sky, their branches clawing at the moonlight. The air was thick with the sound of insects and distant rustling. There was no sign of civilization, no roads, no lights. Bella's chest tightened with terror. They led her down a narrow path, the tall man in front, the scarred man gripping her arm, the boy trailing behind. The van's headlights flickered out as the driver shut it off completely, leaving only moonlight to guide them. Bella's shoes sank into damp soil with each reluctant step. Her mind spun with possibilities: scream, run, fight. But the rope in the scarred man's hands, the knife she glimpsed at the tall man's belt, and the dark woods swallowing her made every option feel impossible. They stopped in a small clearing. A crude cabin sat hunched at its edge, its wooden walls weathered and sagging, windows covered with makeshift boards. A single lantern flickered weakly by the door, its glow barely reaching the path. Bella's heart sank. The scarred man's grip tightened. Welcome home, nurse. Bella swallowed hard, her pulse racing. But deep inside, something flared. Fear, yes, but also fire. She wasn't done. Not yet. Because no matter how deep the forest, no matter how tight the ropes, Bella promised herself one thing in that moment. She would find a way out. The cabin door groaned open, the rusty hinges screeching like a warning. The tall man shoved Bella inside, the scarred man following close behind. The air was thick and stale, filled with the scent of mildew and old wood. Shadows clung to the corners where the lantern's glow couldn't reach, making the room feel smaller, more suffocating. Bella stumbled forward, her knees nearly buckling. Her hands trembled as she caught herself on a rickety table, its surface littered with empty bottles, cigarette butts, and scraps of torn cloth. Every inch of the cabin screamed neglect, a place used for hiding, not living. "Sit," the tall man ordered, pointing to a wooden chair in the center of the room. Bella hesitated. The scarred man yanked her by the arm and shoved her into it. Before she could react, he wound the rope around her wrists, binding them tightly behind her back. The coarse fibers bit into her skin, leaving her wrists raw. She fought the rising panic in her chest. "Breathe. Stay calm. Think." The men moved around her, their voices low and sharp. She caught fragments of their conversation. "Money, ransom, a nurse will fetch a good price." Her stomach turned at the words, her heart pounding even harder. So that was it. She wasn't just a victim of cruelty. She was a commodity. The scarred man crouched in front of her, his scar catching the lantern light. He smirked. Scared, Bella forced herself to meet his gaze. Her voice trembled, but she managed to speak. "You won't win. People like you never do." He laughed, a cruel sound. "People like us always win. People like you. You're the ones who disappear." The tall man grunted, cutting the exchange short. "Enough. We move tomorrow." Bella's stomach clenched. Tomorrow? That meant they planned to keep her alive, for now. But what then? The thought made her throat tighten. The boy lingered near the doorway, silent. His arms folded tightly across his chest, his eyes fixed on the floor. The lantern's light revealed something the men didn't notice: hesitation. Guilt. Bella noticed. She studied him in the moments she could, her mind racing. He was young, too young for this. Maybe dragged into it. Maybe scared himself. If there was a crack in this nightmare, maybe it was him. The men busied themselves, rummaging through bags, drinking from bottles, arguing in low voices. Bella's mind drifted, pulled unwillingly to flashes of her life outside this nightmare. Her mother's smile when Bella told her she got into nursing school. The first time she held a patient's hand as they took their final breath. The little girl who brought her a thank you drawing after Bella had patched up her broken arm. And the faces of her colleagues, the bright fluorescent lights of the hospital, the smell of antiseptic. Her world, so far from this rotting cabin. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I will see them again," she told herself. "I will not die here." The scarred man noticed her silence. He leaned closer, his breath sour with alcohol. "Don't waste your tears. Crying won't change what's coming." Bella turned her face away, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. Hours passed, or maybe just minutes. Time blurred in the heavy quiet. The men eventually grew quieter, settling into makeshift beds on the floor. The lantern burned low, casting long, restless shadows. Bella shifted in her chair, testing the ropes around her wrists. They dug deeper with every move, but she kept working them, inch by inch, knowing even the smallest slack could mean everything. And then she felt it. A flicker of movement. Her eyes lifted. The boy was watching her. His gaze darted from her wrists to her face, then back again. For the first time, she saw conflict carved into his features, a crack in the mask he had worn all night. When the scarred man's head lolled back, drifting into sleep, the boy moved quietly, almost imperceptibly. He stepped closer, his footsteps soft against the wooden floor. Bella's breath caught. He crouched near her, pretending to adjust something near the chair. His lips barely moved as he whispered, so soft only she could hear. "I didn't want this." Bella's heart slammed in her chest. She blinked rapidly, unsure if she had heard right. The boy's hands brushed the rope, just for a second, loosening the knot ever so slightly. "Don't fight now," he whispered. "Wait." Bella's throat tightened, words caught inside her. She could only nod faintly, afraid the others might notice. The boy stood quickly, his face hardening again, slipping back into the role he was expected to play. He walked to the far side of the room, lying down on the floor and turning his back. Bella sat frozen, her mind racing. Hope, a fragile, trembling thing, flared in her chest. The rope around her wrists still held her, but the knot wasn't as tight anymore. She flexed her fingers carefully, testing the give. It wasn't much, but it was something. The cabin grew quiet. Outside, the forest whispered with the sound of crickets and rustling leaves. Inside, the men breathed heavy in their drunken sleep. Bella stared at the boy's back, her thoughts a storm. Who was he? Why had he set this trap if he didn't want it? Was he another victim, caught in their web, or just someone who had made a terrible choice? None of it mattered right now. What mattered was survival. She closed her eyes, breathing slowly, centering herself. Tomorrow they planned to move her. Tomorrow she might vanish forever. But tonight might be her only chance. And deep inside, Bella promised herself she would not be another nameless victim lost to the shadows. She would fight. She would escape. The ropes dug into her wrists, but she no longer cared. Because for the first time since she stopped on that lonely highway, Bella felt something stronger than fear. She felt resolve. The night pressed heavy on the cabin. Bella sat in the creaking chair, wrists bound, but looser now thanks to the boys' hidden help. The men were sprawled out on the floor, half asleep, their snores mixing with the crackle of insects outside. The lantern flickered low, its light trembling like her own heart. She took a slow breath. This is it. Her fingers worked at the loosened knot, sweat slicking her palms. Every tiny movement scraped her skin raw, but she ignored the pain. Each second felt like an hour, every creak of rope like a thunderclap. The scarred man stirred in his sleep, muttering something incoherent before rolling over. Bella froze, her breath locked in her chest. The silence returned. She swallowed hard and kept pulling. Finally, she felt it. The rope slipped free. Her wrist came loose. A surge of relief nearly brought tears to her eyes, but she swallowed them back. She couldn't celebrate yet. Not here. Not now. Her hands shook as she quietly slipped the rope from her body, careful not to let it fall to the floor. She flexed her stiff fingers, blood rushing painfully back into them. Then she glanced around. The men slept. The boy lay curled near the door, his back still to her. She stood slowly, the chair creaking beneath her. Every sound was an enemy. Her knees trembled, but she forced herself steady, one step at a time toward the door. Her foot touched the wooden floorboards. Creak. The scarred man shifted. Bella froze, biting back a gasp. His eyes fluttered open. For a split second, their gazes locked. What, he slurred. Bella didn't think. She grabbed the nearest object, a glass bottle from the table, and swung. It shattered against his head with a sickening crack. He dropped back down, unconscious. The tall man stirred at the noise, groaning awake. Bella darted for the door, fumbling with the latch. Her heart thundered in her chest. The boy shot upright, eyes wide. For a second, they only stared at each other, her panic meeting. His guilt. Then, without a word, he leapt up and shoved the door open for her. Go, he whispered harshly. Bella didn't wait. She bolted out into the night, the cool air slapping her face like freedom. The forest loomed, dark and tangled, but it was better than the cabin. She ran, her shoes pounding the dirt, lungs burning with every breath. Behind her, shouts erupted. The tall man had woken. She's gone. After her. Branches whipped at Bella's arms as she plunged into the trees. The night was alive with the sound of pursuit, the men crashing through the underbrush, their angry voices slicing the darkness. She ran blindly, guided only by desperation. Every crack of a branch felt like a hand reaching for her. Her legs screamed in protest, but she pushed harder. Keep moving, Bella. Don't stop. A root caught her foot, and she stumbled, crashing to the ground. Pain shot through her knees, but she scrambled up, heart pounding. Voices drew closer. Then she heard it. A faint sound, distant but unmistakable. A road. Cars. Civilization. Hope blazed in her chest. She pushed toward it, branches tearing at her clothes, hair snagging in twigs. The forest began to thin, moonlight spilling through the gaps. Behind her, the scarred man cursed loudly. Faster. She's close. Bella broke through the tree line, stumbling onto the gravel shoulder of a road. Headlights glared in the distance. She flung herself forward, waving frantically. A horn blared. Tires screeched. A truck ground to a stop just feet away. The driver, a grizzled man with wide eyes, leaned out. "Lady, what the hell?" "Please." Bella gasped, clutching the door. "Help me. Freely now." The men grew smaller in the rearview mirror, their figures swallowed by darkness as the truck sped down the highway. Bella sobbed, her whole body shaking. Relief, terror, exhaustion, all of it crashed over her at once. "You're safe now," the driver said, his voice firm but kind. "You're safe." But Bella knew the truth. Safe was only relative. What she had seen, what she had survived, would never leave her. Hours later, she sat in a police station, wrapped in a blanket. Officers took her statement, their pens scratching furiously across paper. She told them everything: the fake accident, the cabin, the men, the boy. The boy. Her thoughts lingered on him. Without his moment of mercy, she might not be alive. She told the officers about him too, not as an accomplice, but as someone caught in something far bigger than himself. When the questioning was over, Bella was left alone for a moment in the quiet room. The adrenaline had faded, leaving only the raw ache of what she had endured. She stared down at her trembling hands, rope burns still etched deep into her skin. She thought of the highway, of how simple her choice had been: stop and help. That choice had nearly cost her everything. And yet, she knew she wouldn't change it. Because helping was who she was. A nurse. A healer. A person who couldn't look away from someone in need. The scars of this night would never fully fade. But neither would her resolve. She whispered to herself, a vow spoken into the stillness. "They didn't break me." Outside, dawn painted the horizon in pale gold, a new day rising. Bella was free, and she would never stop fighting, for herself, for others, for anyone who needed help, no matter the danger. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel.